Hello YouTubers, it's Friday, so let's write a play. My all-time favorite play is Cyrano de Bergerac, and I know, it's a little sappy, it's a little melodramatic, I get it, I understand, I can't help it. It's my favorite play. And my favorite character in theater, Cyrano de Bergerac. Now part of this is because when I was a very young child, I'm going to say 5, maybe 6, I saw a cartoon about this man, this rail of a man with the nose the size of a shoe, and he was a great sword fighter, and he pretended to be the voice of a beautiful man who was wooing a woman in a balcony, and then the beautiful man died, but the man with the nose never told the beautiful lady that it was him who was doing the talking on the balcony, and then he died. And this would mark the first time I'd ever seen a hero die. But he didn't die tragically in the sense that he was at a loss or that he was losing things. There was a ferocity to his life and there's a ferocity to his death. And for some reason, even as a young child, I kind of felt elated by his story. Now, as time would go on, I would learn that the cartoon was voiced by Jose Ferrer, who also played Cyrano de Bergerac in the 1950 film version, which is my all-time favorite version to watch. And I have watched them all, and kudos to anybody who's taken on Cyrano de Bergerac. I've seen Derek Jacobi, great job. Kevin Kline, one of my all-time favorites, great job. But Jose Ferrer, his voice, his stature, the way he played Cyrano, I just love that rendition. And I might as well say that it was the Brian Hooker translation. Brian Hooker translated it from the original French, and that's my favorite translation. I've read other translations, I've read a lot of different translations and even different takes on Cyrano. Brian Hooker's translation, my favorite. Jose Ferrer's performance, my favorite. This brings us to the play that I'm working on. I'm actually working on a play that takes place between Acts 4 and 5 of Edmond Rostand's Cyrano de Bergerac. Again, centering on Cyrano as our main character, but between the Acts 4 and 5 in the play, 14 years passes. And in that 14-year span of time, Cyrano, every Saturday, would go to Roxane's side and visit her. He would be her gazette. He would tell her the news of the court and of the land. So I spent a lot of time thinking about those 14 years. What was going on in those 14 years? We're given clues. We know that he wrote for the Gazette and he wrote scathing editorials about power and people in power and the hypocrisy of people in power. But what else did we know? Since Cyrano de Bergerac is actually a story about a man who vicariously becomes a lover through another man, I thought, what if in those 14 years Cyrano took on another role, somewhat vicariously? And what I thought was, what if he took on a student for sword fighting? Because he was a world-renowned duelist. In the play, Cyrano de Bergerac, there's mention of him fighting 100 men in a single duel. There's mention of him beating anyone who comes near him or makes fun of his nose, even in the slightest. And at the very beginning of the play, he actually composes a ballad, a poem, while sword fighting. So his skill as a swordsman, unparalleled. And I thought, what if instead of a person who was trying to get a woman through words that he couldn't speak and through the clumsiness that he couldn't overcome, what if it were a person who wanted to know how to fight? Who wanted to know how to back up his words with steel? And Cyrano would take this person under his arm, and he would have this sort of vicarious experience of being a father. Maybe not vicarious, more a substitute experience of being a father. He'd take someone under his wings, guide him, teach him. And then, of course, because this character is not brought up or seen anywhere in the Edmond Rostand play, it becomes fairly obvious what must happen to him. So that is the play I'm working on. I call it Cyrano's Forte, because his forte was, of course, swordplay, but the forte is also the strongest part of the sword. So when you're actually sword fighting, if you want to gain control, you would take the forte, the strong part of the sword, and hit it against the foible of the other sword, the weak part of the sword. So when you hear about people's foibles or fortes, they're fencing terms, parts of the sword. So if you have some theater that really moved you, plays that really moved you, characters that really inspire you, if you love theater as much as I do, comment below. Talk about the roles that you've played, roles that you've seen, actors that have portrayed the best characters you've seen, and your favorite things to see live on stage. Of course, films count, of course, movies count, of course, television counts, all those things count. But for today, let's talk theater. If you're out there and you love theater, holler.